The ship built in 1,200 days, but why did sink in just 2 hours? 10th April, 1912. It was the day when the largest and most expensive ship in the world, Titanic, was ready to go on its maiden voyage. Today, the Atlantic Ocean was very calm, and there was no distant chance of any hurricane. 1,500 passengers had quickly boarded on plane, and millions of people with stands on docks to watch the maiden voyage of the Titanic. Neither the passengers, not the farewell crowd, and nor the crew of the Titanic knew that 6 major mistakes were made during the construction of the ship that is about to depart, which is going to make this ship a victim of the worst accident. Welcome to my InfoSage TV. Viewers, today you will know about such major mistakes of Titanic, the most expensive, luxury, and most powerful ship of its time. If it had not done, Titanic would probably be famous today not because of its crash, but because of its success. But what were the 6 mistakes that even Edward Smith, the captain of the Titanic with 40 years of experience, did not notice? Let alone the captain's 40 years of experience. The White Star Line company that operated the Titanic, which had more than 107 sailing experience, also did not notice these mistakes. And even the company Harland and Wolff that built the Titanic did not notice these mistakes. Who built 500 ships even before Titanic? The construction of the Titanic began in 1907, and it took almost 3 years to complete the ship with 2,000 hard workers. Now, the ship was completely ready, but the testing phase was still left. Titanic's builders' confidence in him was further enhanced when Titanic successfully completed its first test run. As soon as it's passed test, they marketing it in various newspapers around the world, which was headlined, "The Unsinkable Titanic," means a ship was built that will never sink. The ship's maiden voyage was scheduled to depart from England's city Southampton on 10th April 1912, and its destination was the American city of New York. The cost of traveling in the Titanic economy portion was $30, while traveling in first class was $150, which is $1,200 in today's time. All tickets was sold out during the marketing period. And finally, the day came when the Titanic set sail on its maiden voyage. Mistake number 1. At 12 o'clock in the afternoon, the Titanic made its maiden voyage, and the mistakes of the Titanic began to emerge. Captain Smith had received a deadline from the owners to arrive in New York in any case by the 17th of April. For this reason, the captain kept the ship's speed much faster than the sea, and this was the first mistake of the Titanic. Due to instructions and pressure from the owners, Captain Smith had to reach New York as soon as possible because this was first maiden voyage of Titanic, and if it did not reach New York in time, the reputation of Titanic would be greatly damaged. There are many operating procedures for operating any car, machine, or ship in the world, of which speed limits are also a part of those procedures, and that part was violated at the beginning of the Titanic's voyage. In a short time, the ship was so far out of Southampton Harbor that nothing but the blue sea could be seen in the distance. Mistake number 2. The Titanic had now been underway for 3 days, except for brief stops in France and Ireland. The ship had been sailing continuously towards New York for the previous 72 hours. It was the evening of April 14, 1912, and the sea was silent all around, with a fog that reduced visibility. That same night, another ship a few hours ahead of the Titanic, its captain wirelessly warned the Titanic of an iceberg floating at sea. Experts believe that this warning was given at least 6 times, but because of the carelessness of the wireless operators, they missed the most important warning. Perhaps it was trivial to them. But unfortunately, this was Titanic's second mistake. Because the Titanic was the first luxury ship of its time and carried many VIPs, most of the Titanic's crew was busy serving the first-class passengers. If these warnings were taken seriously, the whole scenario would have been different. Mistake number 3. The speed of the ship was also too high, and they had missed very important warning, as the Titanic was now moving quickly and fearlessly into the confines of the iceberg. But the Titanic could still have been saved from an accident because the ship's guards were alert, who were ready to report to the captain any icebergs seen from a distance. But they didn't have one thing to look at from a distance, and it was binoculars. Yes, the watchmen were alert, but they could not see the iceberg from a distance due to lack of binoculars, and this was Titanic, third mistake. News of the iceberg reached Captain Smith when the ship's watchman reported that there was an iceberg the size of a football field right in front of the ship. But it was too late now because the iceberg was very close. Mistake number 4. Since ships in the Atlantic often encountered icebergs that larger ships could easily handle, Captain Smith probably thought the same. Upon receiving news of the iceberg, Captain Smith ordered the ship's engine shut down and the Titanic diverted. Captain Smith tried his best to avoid the avalanche, but the distance was so short that it was futile to do anything. Iceberg had hit the center of the Titanic, but there was still hope for Titanic's survival. It was hoped that the iceberg would not cause much damage to the ship or break up on its own after hitting the ship. And it might have been something like that if the 4th mistake of the ship had not shown its work. Experts believe that the rivets on the body of the Titanic were not made of steel, but of cast iron. The function of these rivets is to hold large pieces of iron together. But since cast iron is softer than steel, the rivets where the iceberg hit the Titanic opened due to the pressure, and then what Captain Smith had feared happened. Mistake number 5. The Titanic had hit an iceberg the size of a football field and began to fill with water. This dangerous accident alerted the crew and passengers, and as well as Titanic's owner, Joseph Bruce. Of course, the Titanic began to fill with water, but there was still hope for the Titanic to survive because the Titanic was designed in such a way that even if its 3 floors were filled with water, it would not sink. But the misfortune of this ship was that after crossing 3 stages, now the water reached the 4th floor. The matter had gotten out of hand, and the ship was slowly sinking into the water. Now, without worrying about the ship, it's time to save the lives of passengers on board. Captain Smith radios an emergency alert, but plans to transfer the passengers to lifeboats until help arrives. But at this point, the 5th mistake showed its work. The ship had a total capacity of 32 lifeboats, but due to carelessness, only 20 were kept. There were 1,500 passengers, and boats were only 20. Mistake number 6. There was chaos everywhere, and everyone wanted to board these few boats. At 12:45, the first emergency boat was takeoff, but here is the 6th mistake. Amid the chaos, the boats were put out to sea without being fully loaded, in which most of the first-class passengers were given priority. That is, those who were rich were seated first. If the boats had more passengers, fewer lives would have been lost. Now, the ship was rapidly sinking into the sea. At 2:18, a short circuit caused all the lights on the Titanic to go out, and the next moment, the ship split into 2 pieces. Thus, it took 2 hours and 40 minutes for the Titanic to completely submerge in the ocean, and so 1,500 people drowned in the cold water of Atlantic Ocean and died. Let me tell you one thing at that time. The water temperature was -2 degrees. Even if the passengers jumped into the cold water, there was no chance to survive, because a human cannot stay in such a cold temperature for more than 30 minutes. The death toll is said to have been much higher than 1,500, because many people known to the crew boarded the ship without tickets. Most of the survivors were children and women. On the other hand, there was Captain Smith, who spent all his time saving people's lives. And he was the last man who jumped from a sinking ship. Now it's time to go, and don't forget to comment your opinion. I hope you will like and share this video. Thanks for watching. See you soon in the next video.